I think humans are built to accomplish things. I think we're just made this way. If you believe in God or not, no matter what, I think humans feel good when we accomplish tasks. I don't care who you are. I don't care what task it is. If you're playing a video game, you feel good when you reach the next level. Obviously, if you do something hard outside, if you plant a garden and, you dug it out and did all this, you feel good when you're done and you look at it. I mean, I think we are goal driven individuals. Sometimes do we create this perfect world where people are chasing something that would be the equivalent of me if I just decided like, hey man, I want to be an NFL lineman.
Today's episode, as always, was made possible by our sponsors, Huel. Find out more with the link down below.
We live in this world where we are afraid to say things or do things, or, maybe if I go down this road, maybe somebody will disagree and things like that. And man, everything we do in this life shapes us into who we are. So I was in the military and then I became a military officer. Well, I had to be careful of what I said, I then ran a nonprofit. I had to be careful of what I said there, which I think has shaped me into someone who oftentimes isn't fully authentic to who I am. Couple that with, the ghost of Jason Redman and this fear of disappointing people or disappointing, I don't know. I do think it's learning to be content with your true authentic self. And I think that then enables you to reach the highest level you have the ability to be. And being content with that, man. That's what I want. I want to be content. If I want to be able to look at my life and say, man, one, I made a positive impact on people around me. Two, I achieved the highest level I have the ability to be. But right now, I don't think I'm there. I think I'm dragging this weight around and I'm giving people about, 70% of who I am, but 30% I'm like, I don't know. What if they disagree? What if they don't like? What if they, they don't want to hear from you. You're this skinny little runt, Navy SEAL. You're not a Navy SEAL. You're a, runt. Nobody wants to listen to you. They want to listen to David Goggins, Those are the voices I hear. I always felt like, hey, I need to prove myself in this life, and always like, hey, I got to be at the next level, first if I can, or, at the highest level I can be. So that drove me pretty relentlessly. And in some ways it was good. I think like a lot of successful people, an insecurity can really drive you to be successful. The downside is I get older, and it's only, it's only really recently that I feel like I'm starting to appreciate this. It's also a hard way to live your life. I feel like I drag a 1,000-pound weight behind me everywhere I go, and it's the ghost of Jason Redman past. And like I'm trying to always prove that I'm better than that guy. It's funny, I often talk to other people, hey man, don't compare. We all compare. We live in this comparison world. We live in a world that has built itself on a platform of likes and views, and, success is driven by how much you're in the spotlight and what level of impact you have. And the rational side of me can take a step back and say, wow, you really done well. But the irrational side of me, the ghost of the past, says, yeah, you'll never be there. You're just that guy. So those are things that as I get older, I'm working on. Yeah, I am Jason Redman. I am a retired Navy SEAL. I am an author, speaker, coach, and entrepreneur. Probably, I don't know, maybe younger years, 7, 8, I started to lean towards the military. My family had all served. So I grew up with a lot of stories about the military. Both grandfathers on my dad's side and my mom's side had served. I didn't fully understand it. I didn't, know all my history back then, but my grandfather on my mom's side, they were born in France. And my grandfather fought with the French during World War II. And then after World War II, they moved to Canada and then later down into the United States. Whereas on my dad's side, my dad's father was a B-24, a bomber pilot over the European theater during the war. And those guys' life expectancy was not very good. I mean, he flew all 25 missions, highly decorated. I remember reading newspaper articles. There was an amazing article that he earned the Distinguished Flying Cross where they were shot down, and I don't know why they didn't or couldn't bail out, but he crash landed in a snowfield in Yugoslavia, and everyone survived. And they evaded back to friendly lines in Italy, and he got the Distinguished Flying Cross for that, which is a pretty high medal for aviators. So, and 7 air medals and all these things. And I never got to meet him. I just heard stories about him. He ended up passing away before I came along. And then my dad was in the Army. So I had all these stories of military, and it was just something I wanted to do from a young age. I heard about the SEAL teams when I was about 15. I started becoming interested in special operations and special forces, Rangers and Green Berets. And my dad had been a airborne instructor, and he was a rigger, meaning he packed parachutes. And all the way up until probably 2000, Navy SEALs went through airborne school through the Army, including me. So my dad, going back into the 60s, had SEALs who came through airborne school with him. And when I was a young kid in the late 80s, you couldn't find anything about the SEAL teams. Obviously, the internet hadn't been invented yet. So really, it was just trying to find information. It was very hard to find anything. But my dad said, hey, you should check these guys out. You know, they're called Navy SEALs. You know, they're considered some of the best of the best. Their training is the hardest in the world. I was not like this super athlete or this great big strapping kid who was, you know, a black belt in anything. I was a runt. Definitely did not blossom until late in my life, probably 18, 19, you know, did I probably reach my full potential with my height and growth. So a lot of people, when I said, man, I'm going to become a SEAL, I was like a laughing stock. And I don't know why. It was like a tipping point in my life. Like, I'm going to prove to you that I have the ability to do this. And I just locked onto it, and I never looked back from that moment. And I decided, well, man, if I'm going to be a SEAL, I should go do hard things. So I went out for the football team, and I started wrestling, and I started doing all these things. I started working out. But I never lost sight of that goal. That was my goal. And I was never dissuaded from it. When I first went to the recruiting office in a small town in North Carolina, Lumberton, North Carolina, the recruiter literally laughed me out of the office. Like, you know, you'll never be a SEAL. Look at you, you know, you're a scrawny runt, like, beat it. And chased me out of the office multiple times. Kept coming back. And ultimately, that recruiter left. A new recruiter came in by the name of Henry Horn, Petty Officer Henry Horn. And Henry was like, hey, man, if you want to be a SEAL, let me help you. And he did. You know, he helped me down that path. And pretty cool. Probably 2 or 3 years ago, I finally found Henry Horn and got to reunite with him down in North Carolina and just thank him and say, hey, man, I wouldn't be a SEAL if it wasn't for you helping me down this path. But I don't know why. I had all kinds of people tell me I'd never make it. And it fueled a fire within me to make it. The first training school I went to in the Navy was here in the Virginia Beach area. The SEAL teams are based here in Virginia Beach. And the training school had connections to some of the SEALs. So some of the SEALs would come over and train us who were getting ready or wanted to go to SEAL training. And it was through the winter here in Virginia Beach. So, and they hammered us, which was good. So, and I loved it. I mean, I will admit, never once did I feel like, I mean, don't get me wrong. I didn't like the cold, things like that. But I enjoyed the process. I enjoyed training. I knew it was going to be hard, and I knew it was preparing me for that. I then, when I left that training school, there was a delay in going to SEAL training, so I got assigned to the East Coast SEAL headquarters. So I got an additional exposure to the SEAL teams at 18 years old, and getting exposed to this community. There were several of us that were there who were waiting to go to SEAL training. So they had training that we did, once again, reinforcing, it's the negative things in life. That's probably reinforced some of the ridiculous demons I carry. But I had a warrant officer, great dude, and he probably didn't intend anything like this, but he was like, "You're a skinny little runt." He's like, "You're never going to make it through training." He's like, "I want you to go down, and every day I want you to sit in the bay for 10 minutes. It's like the middle of winter, so the water temp's like, 38, 40 degrees. And I would do it every single day. I'd go sit in there. But funny, I think it probably created more of that perception, which just drove me even more to say, "I'll prove you wrong." But all of that, I will say, mentally prepared me. Like, it was no shock to me. I think for a lot of guys that go out to training, for whatever reason, they're not prepared for the level of shock that training does to you. I mean, it is designed to be mentally, physically, and emotionally overwhelming. I mean, it's purposely designed to be that way. It's purposely designed to be unfair. And a lot of guys just cannot wrap their head around that. And they're really good. They tee it up slowly before day one of training starts. So in the in-doc phase for like a month, you're kind of learning what training is, and they kind of act like it's hard, and it is hard. But not like when day one hits, it's like they hit you with a sledgehammer. And man, there's a mass exodus of people that quit within the first couple of days, just right out the gates. And I think those are the people that haven't been able to wrap their heads around, like, this is going to be really hard. And so for me, that was no shock. I was like, okay, this is what we expected, so let's go. So I think that was good. I don't think there was ever, I don't feel like there was ever a time that I was like, oh my God, this is so much exponentially hard than I ever thought it was going to be. I knew it was going to be brutally cold, and it was going to be very hard. And I knew as long as I didn't quit, for the most part, I'd make it. I mean, the toughest part of SEAL training is Hell Week. Hell Week is considered by many to be the hardest block of training in the U.S. military. We definitely have the highest attrition rate of any block of training, specifically in that week. On average, you'll lose almost 80% of the class will quit during Hell Week. And it is the pruning, if you will. It is the last, I don't want to say the last, but it is probably the biggest training device used in SEAL training to weed out the people who don't have the mental fortitude to endure massive discomfort and pain to want to be there, because they apply it in a myriad of really hard ways. Number one, physically demanding activity for Hell Week lasts a week, almost a week. I mean, it's about 5.5 days, so a work week, if you will. During that week, you get almost no sleep. You'll average about 3 hours of sleep. So probably 72 hours in, you're starting to hallucinate. I remember multiple times I was hallucinating during Hell Week. You're 90% of the time you are wet, cold, and coated in sand. So what's happening is you're chafing holes. A lot of guys chafe holes on the inside of their legs and their groin area and your armpits, on your neck, on top of your head. Not uncommon for guys, toenails and fingernails to fall off or pop off from just being wet. And I don't know what causes that, if maybe a combination of being wet and you're not like sleeping, so your body's not re-regulating. But those are all common things that happen. Your you're shivering all the time. So what starts to happen, your muscles are locking up from shivering. So now you're like locking up in pain from shivering. It almost becomes like, I just have to survive this. But you also have to think. You still have to exist as a team. You have to get through the evolutions. It's not like mindless activity. Everything is, you're accomplishing different things, from problem solving to navigating the obstacle course to doing a time run to doing swim, whatever it is. You're doing all these different things, but now you're doing it with the highest levels of stress, pressure, pain, and lack of sleep. You know, what's interesting is the week cranks up in the beginning, and then it actually starts to come down. When somebody had told me, and almost probably led me to almost quit, because, you know, in this life, unrealistic expectations, by getting into Wednesday and Thursday, if you were to watch training and you watch those last couple of days and you would watch the first couple of days, you would say, they're not going as hard now. Well, some of that is just, it's impossible. You're literally guiding zombies, you know, if you will, you know, so there's a level of safety with the students that the instructors are making sure, you know, hey, we're not pushing you so hard when you're in this mentally broken down state where, you know, you could sustain injury. So technically, but in your mind, when you're in it, you feel like, you know, it's funny, you know, you think you're like chariots of fire running, you know, like da, 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 da. You're thinking like, I am so fast on Thursday. And literally you're like a broken turtle. Hell Week was amazing. I mean, to know that I had finished it. I mean, Hell Week is the biggest crucible of SEAL training. I mean, there's still some other ones, and Hell Week is what bonds every SEAL. And there are frequent times that many of us have, you know, talked about that it was your ability to get through Hell Week that later would enable you to grind through the hardest moments in combat. And I mean, I would, you know, my moment in combat became a mental, like, it was a focus on staying awake to stay alive. Like, I knew that if I let go and closed my eyes and went to sleep, I'd never wake up again. So in some ways that came back to those lessons. And I've talked to other guys that have been shot and in crazy situations where a will to survive and persevere is a really powerful thing. I mean, I think any paramedic or doctor can tell you, when someone decides, you know, we may not be able to stay alive indefinitely, but I guarantee you can stay alive for, if I take one person and give them exact same injuries and one decides he's ready to die, he will die very quickly. Whereas the other one, if they're fighting and fighting and fighting, they will live for a substantially long period of time, because it's amazing the power of the will to live and the will to overcome. And I think that's something that Hell Week and SEAL training teaches you. And it's really hard in this day and age. We live in a world that is pushing more and more for this level of perfection. It's what you see in social media. You gotta have the perfect body. You gotta have the perfect job. You gotta make this much money. You gotta have the perfect family. You know, you gotta drive the perfect car. And if you don't achieve those things, then, you know, you're not a good person. And I even run in circles in the entrepreneur space that it's like, if you're not grinding all the time, you're never gonna make it. So, you know, that becomes a thing where you're like, oh my God, if I stop or if I enjoy myself, you know, you feel guilty, like, oh my God. But a lesson that I already know, every one of us is gonna die. So there is a balance here. Everybody should drive to be successful and try and become the best version of themselves, but that becomes the crux. How do you figure out what the best version of yourself is and be content with that?
If you lead a busy life like me and millions of other people around the world, you might be struggling to get your nutrition in. That's where this stuff comes in, absolutely clutch. If health was easy, everyone would be doing it. But Huel make it that easy. You scoop, you shake, and you go, and you get 26 vitamins and minerals, and every single ingredient inside this and all of Huel's other products has been expertly tested by their team to make sure you're getting exactly what you need. And if I'm really in a pinch for time, I'll grab their ready to drink, which has 35 grams of protein, 26 vitamins and minerals, and tastes delicious. Don't just take my word for it though. People like Idris Elba, Diver CEO Stephen Bartlett, and Hardest Geezer, who ran the entire length of Africa, use this as part of their daily routine. So if you want to find out more, go to the link down below. You can get exclusive offers, like if you sign up to their subscription service, you get 10% off all future orders, and if it's your first time ordering, you get a free shaker and t-shirt. It's also now available in major retailers in the UK and the US. What are you waiting for? Go get it.
The new year is approaching, and as always, Mulligan Brothers is doing its 2025 sale. So if you put the code in on the website, you can get buy one, get one free across the whole range, including the Not a Journal and the Memento Mori poster. An interactive poster that you fill in every single week, and it shows you how much life you've lived and potentially how much you've got left. Then somewhere along there is a square that will be my last square. It might have even been the square that I filled in last week, and I promise you, that fills you with the most motivation to make your life mean something and live with purpose. And the Not a Journal is a journal for just getting stuff done. I know so many of you have loved it, and that's why we've included it in the buy one, get one free with the link below. While stocks last. Once all the journals are gone, that is it, guys. As always, each year we do sell out, so make sure you get your orders in very quick. By purchasing something from the website, you're helping support us going into 2025 to be able to make even more incredible documentaries.